Susan Dargos with Welcoming America, and it's really a pleasure to have all of you join us for today's conversation. I'd like to give an especially warm thank you to the Office of Refugee Resettlement, whose support for this technical assistance program has made today's webinar possible. So we're having today's webinar on building support with local leaders for our work. Well, I think that we recognize it's important that local leaders, whether they're mayors, whether they're faith leaders, whether they're leaders in the business community, it's important that they know who refugees are, they recognize the contributions that they're making to communities, understand why refugees are worth investing in. They are trusted communicators with the broader receiving community, and when they send out positive messages about the people we're helping and the kinds of communities we're trying to create, it really helps bring our efforts to a new level. These cultures also help strengthen credibility for the work that you're doing every day and can help attract new resources to your efforts. And I think it's important we remember that you have a lot to offer them as well as folks who are working with refugees on the ground. You can help them have access to a broader array of diversity in their community. Many local leaders recognize how important it is to be responsive to their diverse community, and they may not always have access to some of the refugee populations that many of you work with. We also recognize that at this moment in time, it's more important than ever, especially as we're seeing unaccompanied children fleeing violence in Central America and some of the controversies that has brought to our communities. It's really important to build greater welcome for newcomers in our communities. And no doubt that we need the voices of mayors, of chambers of commerce, of faith institutions, of educators, and so many others to say that we need to be welcoming to refugees and all members of our communities. We need to find those special people to help us build unity in our communities, and we need to be there to support them when they stand up for a positive vision. And Welcoming America is going to be sending out more to our broad network today on the issue of unaccompanied children. So for that, you'll start to see some of the messaging that we're trying to use to help leaders and all community members work towards this broader vision. So we'll also have a number of resources coming out in the weeks to come on this issue, so stay tuned for more on that. But today, we're really pleased to be joined by two experts from the field with many years of experience in working with local leaders to build more community support for refugees. We're going to be hearing from Anna Crosslin, who works and actually leads the International Institute of St. Louis. This is an organization that's been around for 95 years and has deep connections in the community. Anna herself worked in refugee resettlement at the International Institute for 36 years. And this has allowed her to make many community connections and has really paid off. She was really instrumental in helping create St. Louis Mosaic, a cross-sector effort to help St. Louis an immigrant-friendly and refugee-friendly community. And it's also paid off in that her organization is really undertaking a major expansion of services right now. So today we'll learn how Anna has connected with leaders during her tenure in St. Louis. And from Barb Murock, who works in county government at the Allegheny County Department of Human Services. Barb is going to give us a perspective as a local leader herself and share advice on how to help others connect to the refugee population. So what this is going to follow is we'll have some slides and some presentation from Anna. That will be followed by some slides and presentation from Barb, and then we're really going to open it up to you for your questions and your comments. So as you hear Barb and Anna speak, Please feel free to chat in your questions and answers, and then I will lead a moderated discussion with the speakers following that. So with that, we're ready to turn it over to Anna to kick us off, sharing a little bit more on engaging community leaders.
Great. Thanks so much for that introduction and for the opportunity to speak today. I'm very much looking forward to addressing you for a few minutes and kind of sharing with you some fun realizations that I've had over my many years here at the International Institute. I'm a believer when you want to start out on an effort like this, that you want to be able to, from the get-go, figure out where you want to end up. It's all outcomes. And once you've figured out where you want to get, to say, well, who are the leaders or influentials that can help you get there? What messages will actually resonate with them? How will get their intention? And where do you need to go to actually meet them and become engaged with them? And what have you, as an organization, individual, etc., got to be able to offer these individuals so that they will see a tit for tat in what's happening? So start and talk a little bit about desired outcomes. And I have three of them I have placed on this slide as possibilities. They're definitely a part of our outcomes. They may be part of yours. A more welcoming community, improved agency sustainability, and a stronger economy for all. These are, as you see, not necessarily quantifiable, because an outcome is not an output. That's something that I think not-for-profits and we in the Refugee Network get very confused about. Output might be that you served 7,000 people last year, but outcome might be how has that effort actually improve the lives of those individuals or improve the community in which they live. So looking at then and looking them down a little bit, let's look at welcoming community. Well, what does that mean? Engagement, connectivity. In St. Louis, it might mean that as a community, we've always thought of ourselves as being helpful to people, but not particularly welcoming. We're a little bit insular for that, and so recognition and being able to help them build is wonderful. Sustainability, well, more money, obviously, is what it means there. And stronger economy for all. Well, what do our clients, in fact, do but get to contribute money, both in terms of initial employment, but secondary job creation in the community? And how do our entrepreneurs at that point really give value to the community? Identifying connections. One of the things that's really important to recognize is that you need a different set of connections for each of the outcomes. You're not necessarily trying to identify and engage the same people. If you're looking at, for instance, the first goal of being a more welcoming community, as you might be if you're improving agency sustainability. The first one, for instance, you might be looking at issues of faith, business, government, neighborhoods, of diverse communities. They all come in. They're all important factors when you're looking at creating a welcoming community. On the other hand, if you're looking at sustainability, you're talking about funds, foundations, businesses, etc., and professional immigrants. And then when you want to talk about a stronger economy for all, you're talking government, business, entrepreneurs. You see what's happening here? There is some overlap between the groups. And what you want to do is you want to be able to, and get on to our next message, we want to develop messages then that resonate with each of these populations based on the kind of outcome that we're looking for, not based on client needs. These days, whether it's government, business, etc., they are just lambasted constantly for what they don't do in the community, for the neglected, very real in some cases, that native-born American populations feel because they're not getting attention for a variety of different needs. So making your argument based on client needs will appeal to certain points of this population, but may not, in fact, be the strongest argument. Instead, you should look at what the committee is really trying to do. And I have three examples here. One is meal attraction and retention. Within there, what's the argument in favor of not just refugees, but foreign-born in general? Well, 30% of millennials are non-white at this point, and they want to live and work in communities that look like them. If your companies, if your corporations want to be able to attract these young, talented individuals, they need to have a community that looks like these young and talented individuals, but also then has the cultural and the global sense that these individuals are happen to be looking for. Immigrant entrepreneurs. Well, let's look at that issue. In St. Louis, based on our studies, immigrants are 60% more likely to be entrepreneurs than native-born population. In a case like that, all of a sudden it gets the attention, whether it's chambers of government, etc., because regardless of whether these are high-tech, very service-related businesses that get started across the spectrum, immigrants are starting businesses. Population is a source. I just saw an interesting number, in fact, come to the Council on Foreign Relations within the last couple of days. It says in the heartland, for instance, St. is definitely part of that group. The population between 35 and 44 years of age, native-born population, we've lost 21% of that category, and the immigrant population has grown 44%. When you're using numbers like that and then tie them to economic value and improvement of your community's resources for all, then you start getting attention. Okay, opportunities to meet and connect. This isn't just about going to the meetings that so many of I and my colleagues attend, having to do with refugee resettlement and aligning ourselves with activists in the community and social services and health, etc. This is actually about getting out and being intentional, deciding where these people are that you're trying to find, and then interacting in circles where leaders happen to be. So what do? We belong to the St. Louis Regional Chamber. We're members. We pay $500 a year. In fact, it seems to some like that's probably a lot of money. That's the not-for-profit rate. The value we get back from that is invitations to all of their events. And we attend their events. We go and we glad hand. We get there early. We talk with people. And over again, then, we are using the messages that you saw just a moment ago on the other slide consistently. So we're getting attention of people in the community. We also have worked over the years very hard to make friends with the media. And what we do, for instance, we are constantly sending them possibilities, options in terms of news stories, feel-good stories, so that we have a down day and they need to cover something, they turn and look in their options and they say, oh, gee, here's something about immigrants and refugees that we could cover today since we have a hole. Those are the kind of things you need to do. You don't need to wait until the media contacts you, but you need to be very aggressively out there trying to cater to the media, helping them, because a lot of times they're on deadline and they don't have the time to be able to be the experts in every area. If they learn that you're an expert and they can call on you to help them when they've got those deadlines, then they will respond to you from the other side as well. So what do you have that you can offer? One of the things that all of us have that we don't realize has great value is our knowledge of the ethnic communities that include our constituents and customers, but are also constituents and customers of these other groups. It's government that wants to be able to turn these people into voters that are positive and will help re-elect different officials. Where it is businesses that see people as targets for their products and services. But these people want access to the communities and to the leaders of the communities, but don't necessarily know how to do it. And so that becomes part of the role that you can play in the community, is to provide that link, and through it then becomes gratitude and money, quite frankly. So this is you become a connection with these different individuals, these different entities, also mainstream services at that point. Let yourself become known as one of the pipelines for population growth in your region. When I look at the numbers here in St. Louis and they say, oh, we're 43rd in the nation for foreign-born, for instance, I don't settle just for that number. I go in, for instance, and according to Brookings Institute, what I find is, oh, gee, we're 19th in the nation in terms of our metropolitan size. We're 21st in the nation in terms of our refugee population compared to larger, and we're 60th in the nation in terms of immigrant population. 43 actually masks the of immigrants, of refugees, the huge impact that refugees provide at that point in your communities, and you should make people know. So before you reach out, make sure you've already got a plan and you've perfected your elevator speech and that you really have practiced it over and over again. And make sure that your internal house is in order. You don't want a scandal. You don't want people to say, oh, your board is full of a bunch of people who are disengaged or weak. You want to be able to show the best time to raise money, in fact, is when your organization is healthy, because corporations, businesses, etc., will invest their money if they think that they're going to get a return off of it. If you're pleading poverty and the fact that you may close tomorrow, then you don't get as many opportunities at that point, because people won't bank on you being around next year to really be able to deliver the services that you say that you were going to deliver. So one of the things that's happening right now, and Susan alluded to it, is that we're in the process of moving out of our facility and into another one. In spring 2014, the International Institute decided that we needed a larger facility because the St. Louis Mosaic Project has a goal by 2020 of our region being the fastest growing region for immigrants in the U.S. And when they believe in that, when the community, whether it's the corporate, the funders, et cetera, believe that that's a reality, that they're really going to accomplish that goal, then of course our message is, if we have more immigrants by 2020, we need a larger service structure, resonates with them. So in fact, the two messages of Mosaic and the International Institute actually align very well, because they're about attraction of these immigrants and they're about retention of the immigrants. And that's one of the messages we're using over and over again. And because of it, this is what we've recently bought and into which we're expanding. This is the new home of the International Institute by January of 2015. Now, I want to note that when I started here 38 years ago, we had an annual budget of $110,000 and 9 staff, including the part-time housekeeper. This isn't an overnight process, but what has happened incrementally over the years is this is our 4th site. We're now in a position where we are going to be the welcoming center for St. Louis for all foreign-born newcomers, foreign students and immigrants and refugees, etc., because there's a lot of alignment between their needs. And what we're really talking about is figuring out how you can align to other services and be able to accomplish your goals for each of the groups. So a lot. And it over now, or Anna will turn it over now to Barbara.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk to you about the Allegheny County Department of Human Services Immigrants and Internationals initiative. Just to let you know a little bit about Allegheny County, we have a small number of immigrants here, but we're growing, and we're working on being very welcoming. In the county, we have about 60,000 immigrants and including refugees. About 3,500 of them are refugees that have been resettled here, but we have other refugees that are attracted here. Now over 4,000 Bhutanese here, for example, because the word has gotten out that Pittsburgh is a great place to be and find jobs and housing. The Department of Human Services itself provides a broad range of services in Allegheny County, everything from children, youth, and families, aging, mental health, drug and alcohol, after-school, family prevention programs. So it's a broad range of services. And our Immigrants and Internationals initiative started about 7 years ago when the senior leadership was beginning to note that they were seeing more immigrants in different human services and wanted to know how we were doing on meeting our goal of being accessible and culturally competent. And so out of that, we had some listening sessions in the community, and one of their recommendations was to start an advisory council. So we have the Immigrants and Internationals Advisory Council, which is a very active group, and in the last 6 years they've had many accomplishments and many kinds of initiatives that they've worked on. They have several committees. And they're composed of 4 refugee resettlement organizations, 3 literacy groups, 2 family support centers that focus on immigrants and refugees, immigrant leaders from several different agencies, and other immigrant-serving organizations and communities. Other people now want to join the advisory council, but we have a nominating committee from within it. They're very clear about keeping their focus and their mission, and having the majority of people in it and the leadership of it always be immigrants. And what we've found in our together is that there's strength in numbers. We found that if we use our collective voices and approach leaders as a group, then we can make things happen that were considered anecdotal, or one person or 2 people, and being told, well, we can't adapt to you. But if people together as a group, they can start to create a tipping point. For example, with our one of our major hospital systems, where there were repeated problems with people and the service they were getting, especially around language. And so after some incidents and reporting them, we met with them as a group, and all of that was, in working with them, is that now we have quarterly meetings with that hospital system, and they want to show us what they're doing every time, and they want to show us, they want us to tell them where they are not doing a good job, so that they can improve it. Whenever our advisory council has a meeting with a leadership of a government or other agency, they come with a focus agenda, not just a meet and greet. And that started from the very beginning. The advisory council was going to be meeting with the director of the Department of Human Services, and they said, oh no, we want to come with our 2 highest priority issues. So they worked on what that would be, and they decided it was language access and cultural competency. And they came with that agenda. It was approved by the director, and they formed committees and began working on it. And it's always important to understand the landscape of who you're working with and make sure you have the right channel for who can help with a need. For example, our State Department of Public Welfare has county assistance offices, and sometimes people are mistaken and they think it's county government, and it's not. So it doesn't help to go to the wrong level of government who can help you. You need to distinguish what's a city service, and the services are usually human services are usually at the county level. So it's really important to do a little bit of homework, and then zero in even the right person. Is it the city council member from a certain district that you want to talk to about what's on in that community, or how you can engage better in the community? So when our group meets with people, they always work hard to frame the issue ahead of time and offer some solutions. It's not good to go in and meet with a public official just with what's wrong. It's always good to end with some suggestions for what can be done. For example, give them information about where and how to get interpreters. Is them on maybe holding a session where it's in a certain community, and therefore if they hold meetings they're going to have in certain places, and they would need an interpreter in one place, but they would it everywhere. So, we always assume goodwill, even though it not be there, and a commitment to a win-win situation. Because if you already have it, you may create it with people. Never have a meeting without including it with some next steps, because otherwise it just turns out to be a meet and greet. It turns out to be a photo opportunity, and it doesn't change anything, and that's not what you want. That everything that we do is aimed towards building the leadership among the immigrants themselves. We work towards expanding access to existing programs such as WIC There might be how to help WIC to serve immigrants better. What do they need to know about how they can make their services accessible and more culturally competent? How do we get the WIC program in aging, for example, to be accessible to immigrants? It has people going into homes and doing assessments. How can we help them be more comfortable? And how do we make that program work better for refugee families? Sometimes we've developed specialized programs too. The need kept coming up that refugee and even the other immigrant serving agencies experience needs among people, and you probably are very well familiar with this. Their needs are greater than what you're funded to help them with, to coordinate their services and help them. For example, a literacy program. Somebody might need help with a housing issue. Somebody might need help with their food stamps. So, what we did was we thought about how what was an idea we could try for this, and we approached an organization that had a AmeriCorps program, our literacy council, that had one that did literacy work, and we had that program asked them if they would start an AmeriCorps program just to serve immigrants and refugees, and they did. Ideas to have library days that are just for a certain community. That's being done in an area. Everyone's welcome to the library at any time, but they have a special focus and have books out that are appropriate for immigrants that help them. And we also developed a refugee career mentoring program when there were Iraqi refugees who had education and they needed a pathway to get more into careers at the level of their education and experience. As I said, everything we do is oriented towards developing leadership among the immigrants themselves. Every time we have the opportunity, we help them speak for themselves. We get them to lead committees, do community presentations when there's cultural competency presentations or panels that come up. We promote and support the development of associations in the immigrant community. We've worked with the University of Pittsburgh with a couple refugee groups, the Somali Bantu and the Bhutanese, to work with them to develop as organizations, register as community associations. One did a strategic plan. The other one asked for leadership development to help them grow. And they understand and appreciate that now with official leadership, they can, as a community, talk to municipal governments, talk to the schools if there's issues with the children, and talk to the police, and have a voice of their own. And I think that's one of the most important things, is to help people integrate into the community by becoming part of the community. And we also look for opportunities for where they can connect to immigrant and receiving communities. For example, with a community development association, for people who want to start businesses, a local community development association wants to develop decline corridors for business, and it's a natural match. And it's by introducing them, connecting them, you can help them stay on their own, and just with the guidance begin to become more integrated into our communities. Now, we also have a wide representative of groups on the council, and the members of the advisory council see the advisory council as effective and giving them a voice in the community. It's something that they feel proud of. They bring real issues to, and then we work on the issues. It was through the advisory council that they gave voice to the need for more engagement of refugee seniors in the community who were feeling isolated. So we've been working as a committee on connecting the leadership of some of the communities to the senior centers that are nearby, so that they can participate in some scheduled activities that may be just specifically for them and may be integrated at some points into the other activities. We always work on building strong relationships, but we at the Department of Human Services, both here and when we work in the community, we work hard never to overpromise. That's or even when you're working with others in the community, don't promise what you can't deliver, because that will weaken the relationship that you have. And have things be reciprocal too. Expect things from leadership of the immigrant organizations and the immigrant leadership too. Give them support, but hold them accountable too to an activity that they said that they were going to plan or execute. In reaching out and into local institutions, we found ways to collaborate, as I said, with hospitals, with schools. There is in one community where a city school where there is a large ESL program and a refugee population. I think that they was organized to bring the refugee parents to the school. As you all know, that it's in the U.S. where we really promote family and parent engagement in student education, and that's not a tradition that many people come from. So by having the parents come and helping them feel welcome and bringing them as a group, they're getting better connections to the schools that their children attend. We are working on engaging other hospitals as well as the one hospital system. Some of the needs, we're working with the hospital system specifically around behavioral health needs. We have a behavioral health initiative that got started as another need that bubbled up from the immigrant and refugee community. As I said, engaging with police, having police come out to an immigrant community meeting. One group invited them, and they said, we learned that the police are our friends, that they're not to be feared, and they needed to learn more about what the rules were so that they could comply to it. And at local government as well. It's good to get to know and meet and work with local government and have the leadership be engaged or involved in any activities or cultural activities that are happening. So our consistent outreach and dependability has attracted others to come to us, to our advisory council. A census has come as a way to do outreach. This has come. The FBI human trafficking coalition in Pittsburgh has come. The Red Cross. So it's not possible anymore for leadership to not be aware or not be able to say that they are connected with or responding to or events of immigrants in our community. And the immigrants themselves are having a voice, and they're helping them grow on a pathway to citizenship, which the elected officials know they're going in that direction. That really helps develop a stronger connection in the community and a stronger commitment on the part of elected officials. And everything we do, it's connect. Connect others with the same goals as you, same concerns and interests. It may be that it's an immigrant or refugee serving groups. It may even be something like we are connected with the Center for Hearing and Deaf Services here. They work together with the language interpreter. They're housed there, so that which turned out to be a good match, because then the community sees that these connection between services for sign language, which they're used to using, and services for interpretation, which is always the struggle to get people to understand they need to provide. So make connections to the receiving communities. If the playground going up, know about it. Connect the local refugee organization so that they're helping build the playground too and meeting people. And there's community gardens. Get the refugees involved in what community gardens are happening as well. So that's a very important part of helping people integrate into the community. So in summary, the effective strategies are there's strength in numbers, initiate any kind of positive change or having immigrants have their needs served or them be represented in the community, a positive approach to problem solving, immigrant leadership development, and collaborate wherever possible. Thank you. Learn more here about the Allegheny County Immigrants and Internationals Initiative. We have a publication. We do a needs assessment of our county, and we have a resource page too, and they're all there for you to look at when you get a chance. Thank you.
Thank you, and everyone will be sure to send out these links to you after the webinar. If you don't have time to write down some of these rather long email addresses, it's clear that Allegheny County has some great resources, just like St. Louis. And Barb and Anna did a really great job, I think, of inspiring us all to think about what's possible when we are able to successfully engage local leaders. So thank both of you. I'd like to invite the audience now to chat, use the chat box and send in any questions that you may have or any comments, all related to the examples that you've heard and the wisdom that you've heard from Barb and Anna. But I also would invite you to think about any particular sectors that you've been struggling to engage, that you might need some help around. Barb and Anna, I think, are great resources for you. So please, let's take advantage of their expertise while we have them on the phone. And, you know, if perhaps there's not a particular sector, perhaps there's a particular goal that you have. You need local leaders to help you support, and maybe Barb can help you think about that goal. So why don't you go ahead and start chatting in some of that. And in the meantime, I'll kick off with the first question. It's kind of a comment, but also would love some reaction from Anna. In your slides, Anna, you talked about, you know, different goals that you have, you know, whether it's welcoming community or you know, expanding your program area, you know, getting more resources for your organization. You also talked about the fact that these things have overlap, and it strikes me that it wouldn't have been possible for the International Institute to expand like it has without being able to engage that broader community around a welcoming vision. Is that right? Could you comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, I have to agree with you, and it didn't happen overnight. And in truth, it didn't start happening until probably the last decade. There were a couple of things that happened here in St. Louis that contributed to being more accessible. And one is a large influx of refugees in the 1990s and 2000s, including what turned out to be the second or the largest Bosnian population in the United States. And so there was such numbers that people started noticing them as opposed to the clusters of smaller populations that had been arriving prior. But also then I think our population loss issues came to crunch in the 2000 census when we were going in the wrong direction and going in the wrong direction quite quickly. And then added to that, we actually got some foundation support then in 2012 to do a couple of major studies on economic impact of immigrants here in St. Louis. And all of it kind of came together. We had the data. We had kind of an awareness and a recognition that there were foreign-born community, and we had the very real circumstance of population loss with which to grapple. And it was hard then for people not to pay attention. And you have to have people paying attention before your messages. You know, if you have messages, it doesn't do any good if people are listening. So you have to prepare the environment first for the message. And so as then these studies were completed in 2012, then began to set the stage for what has happened since, both with the St. Louis Mosaic Project and more recently with the International Institute.
Thanks so much, Anna. It's exciting to see that's all come together. I have a question then for Barb. First a comment and then a question. And I'm going to try and find it. We had an audience member. Oh my, everybody, my chat is going crazy right now. This is a good sign. We had an audience member from Wisconsin chat in to say that it's very helpful to have their top leadership, basically their mayor, speak out when they encountered negativity about refugees. Everyone expects advocates and diversity coordinators to be positive about refugees, and so we really need folks like the mayor to step up and speak. You mentioned on one of your slides, you said, it's important to be able to frame the issues and offer solutions. Can you share with us an example of when you've had to do that, when there's been some challenge in the community and when groups have had to step forward and frame that, in a positive way that offers solutions, just so we can get concrete?
Well, I work mostly in the area of human services, and one example would be wanted to be able to have immigrant and refugee mothers be part of the home-based child care provider network. And it was really difficult because they said, oh, well, they don't fit into our meetings, so we'd have to get an interpreter. And it was really hard to try to get through the system and for families to register to get the child care subsidy. So we got together and we got a whole group together, and then we had them work with us. We guaranteed a certain number of people coming to the meeting, and so and we provided the interpreter in what languages we needed. So when you do that with something, you come up with a solution of a way to make something work better. Even here at the Department of Human Services, we make our building available to immigrant and refugee groups to use because it's centrally located, and you've just run into something with the person who staffs the security desk, and we've come up with ways to help him communicate better. Having some pictures and translated words just to help people know where to go when they're coming for their meetings. So I'm talking about a small level or a large level. We had tremendous community support when there was a landlord who was very negligent and problematic in some buildings where refugees, it was mostly refugees who lived. And the leadership of the community really stood behind helping try to change the situation. The different levels of government came in with leadership at the top from the health department and other departments of the city and the county calling for to hold him accountable, and especially for health and safety matters.
Mm-hmm. Great. I have another question around receiving communities that I think both of you could answer, and that is: are your receiving communities welcoming to refugees in general? Is it? It's sort of this chicken egg question, right? When we're trying to get politicians involved in our work. Does the receiving community first have to be positively inclined towards refugees before politicians will step out? Is it possible to engage politicians in this work when the receiving community isn't behind them? What's been your experience?
Who wants to go first? I can just say, Anna. I can just say that from the point of view here in St. Louis. And we are largely a positive community about refugees and immigrants. Perhaps it's because our total population is not as high as it might be in other cities, and therefore it's not considered threatening. Our total population of foreign in our metro area is about 4.5%. Having said that, though, we have had our share of a pushback over the years about refugee populations because we have a large number of unemployed minority individuals in the community and lower income individuals, and there is a perception that that particularly at the entry level, that there may be competition for certain kinds of jobs, etc. But it is possible to overcome that, and it is possible to have a welcoming community without your senior elected officials being behind it. But it is much more difficult that way. We've been blessed that both our mayor and our county executive have been just unequivocally 150% behind immigrants in general and behind the statement that we are a welcoming community. They are, in fact, the leadership. They are the leadership of the St. Louis Mosaic Project. They, along with the president of our St. Louis Regional Chamber, are the three leaders of our Mosaic Project. And so having that kind of level of buy-in makes it so much easier. We'll tell you that the mayor, for instance, in there for 15 years or so, I was the earlier years when the mayor was not so positive, and we were still able to do it. It just takes different messages then, and it takes a different kind of a coalition.
And I would say that for the answer, it depends. In some communities, such as there's a neighborhood that was a declining neighborhood, and there's over 500 or 600 Bhutanese now in that neighborhood. The city council member really reached out in the community and sees them and some of the businesses they're starting and as things that are good in the community, and has worked to help them integrate with some of the local people. Another community, and to be honest, there are some refugees who are not as accustomed to Western ways, and some of the ways that they act in public spaces, not understanding public parks the way we might understand them, can cause some friction with local government, and that's where having some local immigrant leadership itself come in is a big help. And one thing we need to remember, though, on a larger scale, and this may be more part of what Anna's work is already, is that although we're here from our perspective with refugees and in human services and serving the more vulnerable immigrants, the leadership is engaged in all the immigrants. And here in Allegheny County, we have several major research institutions: Carnegie Mellon, University of Pittsburgh, hospital systems, and we have a lot of tech development, a lot of medical research going on here. And we have, according to the census, one of the more highly educated immigrant populations in the country. So part of who they support, who they acknowledge and make sure they include in their support of immigrants, are those level of immigrants as well.
Mm-hmm. So a broad definition of the newcomers in your community. We have a number of questions, many questions that I'm going to try to consolidate into one around immigrant leaders and how immigrants are working through the Internationals initiative and also through the process in St. Louis. Immigrants are part of this, and how to overcome some of the challenges that some of our audience members have identified. And some of those challenges include perhaps a lack of interest among the refugee community in getting involved, perhaps a fear of government, perhaps divisions between different ethnic groups or different groups with different kinds of legal status, I guess, or refugees versus immigrants, people who just may be burned out because they get called on all the time, or who may, be the same old people who are often seen as just figureheads in the community. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to overcome some of these barriers, if you've been able to overcome them, and how you've been able to be successful in this area?
In terms of international,
okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Anna.
I was going to say, in terms of the International Institute, one of the things we have to remember is we've been around for 95 years, and so we have really worked with every major wave of immigrants and refugees who have arrived in St. Louis since 1919. So our roots are very deep. And because of it, we have we maintain a lot of ongoing connections with the immigrant communities. we have what we call our culture links, which is a directory that we in fact publish that includes over 400 ethnic organizations, immigrant serving organizations, dance troupes, etc. And that's something we maintain at the International Institute and share with the community. We also operate a Festival of Nations annually, which is one of our largest weekend fairs here in St. Louis. About 140,000 people come over a 2-day weekend at the end of August, and we have more than 70 different ethnicities that present their culture at that event. 4 stages, 50 food booths, the whole routine. So we run the gamut from the fact that we run the largest ESL site in the state here at the National Institute using adult education money to pay the teachers so that they start out together. Many of the new arrivals, particularly refugees, start out together in classes. We run the gamut from that to helping them get their jobs, because we also do 400 job placements a year, to running leadership training classes for the immigrant leaders, including refugees, and in fact having had an immigrant citizens police academy operate for several years so that they could do ride-alongs with the police, etc. The way to for the higher and all refugees, in fact, operating cultural activities like the Festival of Nations. So we are considered to be the central point for immigrants of many different groupings, and we have not, because of it, seen that there is this kind of division of one group feeling like they get service and another doesn't, but instead, because we serve all groups in kind of a wave as they're here, and then later engage them through festivals and cultural appreciation activities, they sort of think of the Institute as theirs, and we quite frankly want them to. And so we've been very grateful, in fact, to be able to engage them down the lane then, both through St. Louis Mosaic Project and other initiatives, and being able to be representatives and leaders in the community. But it's a continuum of services and a continuum of different asks at different points in their developmental phases.
What a great accomplishment, Anna, to have that kind of sentiment across your foreign-born community. What about you?
I think that our advisory council really fosters building relationships rather than competition. I mean, I know that the different groups, even among the agencies, everyone needs funding, and there might be some competition for funds that's not out on the table. But our groups, by and large, it really helps to be able to work together and have accomplishments together, and it really builds cooperation among them. And for example, there was a situation a few years ago where there was a car accident, and a couple of teenagers from the Burmese Karen community were killed, and the Burmese community got together and provided food for the funeral service. So they come together, and they know each other, and support each other. By and large, it's growing that way. And at one of our advisory council meetings, I heard 2 refugees speaking to each other. One was an African refugee, and one was a Bhutanese refugee, about how they should get all together and play soccer, because the nations people come from, it's soccer. And so now that's sort of on the drawing board for sometime in the future, with our city really likes the idea and they're engaged in it. So, bringing them together that way, for positive things helps too.
A lot of sense. I mean, that's when we talk about we engage the receiving community, we talk about building meaningful contact between U.S.-born and foreign-born individuals through their common interests, and it strikes me that we could be doing more to build those kind of contact opportunities between diverse communities. And
sometimes they need to build connections with each other. We have in our region support groups for immigrants, that are very helpful for them to make connections to each other and build on each other's strengths and integrate more into the community. But they develop social supports, but they're also, the leadership of them is trained in what resources are in the region, too, for their groups.
Great. Well, thank you both. We're almost out of time, and we have just a few announcements to get through. But thank you both, Anna and Barb, for your excellent work and your wonderful presentation and conversation with us. I do want to point out to everyone on the phone, we have some additional resources related to this topic at welcomingrefugees.org. If you haven't seen our Reframing Refuge Toolkit, you'll definitely want to take a look because it really talks about how to communicate about refugees in a way that resonates with the receiving community, and I think it can be a good tool as you're thinking about the kinds of local leaders you'd like to involve in your work. It's clear we all need to do our homework and get our good messages out there like Anna was talking about, and this toolkit can help you do that. Another resource I wanted to share is the Receiving Communities Toolkit. There is a chapter there on engaging leadership and some more do's and don'ts from folks across the field of working on immigrant and refugee integration. So check out that toolkit and the leadership chapter. I want to turn it over to Hannah to tell us a little bit about what else is coming up.
Hi, everyone. So we have a few exciting announcements. We'll be having a leadership learning circle late in August, on August 18th from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be holding another conversation on leadership engagement. And our speakers will be joining us, so if you had some questions that you didn't get answered today, it would be a great time to join. So if you're interested in joining us in the Learning Circle call, please send an email with the following: the geographic reach of your work, why you would like to join, and leadership engagement topics that you're most interested in learning about. And send those to me at hannah@welcomingamerica.org Monday. Next, I want to talk about National Welcoming Week, which is coming up the week of September 13th to 21st. This is a week that's focused on bringing together immigrants and receiving communities. We have a lot of people do many different kinds of events, so service projects, soccer, tournaments, film, citizenship ceremonies, international food festivals, and proclamations. You can just see your community and what you know will work there, what you know people will come to. 2013, we had 150 events with 6,000 participants, and want it to be even bigger this year, so please get involved in an event and help us make that number even bigger. If you register your event by August 7th, you will receive 5 free National Welcoming Week t-shirts, a large banner, and 50 buttons. And you do that by visiting our website at welcomingweek.org. These are a few resources that we have just to give you some ideas about what you can do for Welcoming Week. We have a webinar coming up next week. I'm sorry, the date isn't here. It will be August 6th at 1 p.m. Yes, August 6th at 1 p.m. for an hour. And then you can also listen to a recording of our July 10th storytelling webinar that we held earlier this month at the link that's on the screen. And then we also had iNation, who spoke on that storytelling webinar, put together a Welcoming Week activities toolkit that has just a lot of ideas about how you can use storytelling to make an event for your community. We'd love to have you do an event, so just if you're interested, please visit welcomingweek.org and register your event, and you can always reach out to us, your ideas, and just to brainstorm events. And I also wanted to remind you to fill out the survey when we exit the event. We use the survey just to keep providing web content that's helpful to you, and we really need your feedback to do that. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you at the webinar.
We hope you have a great day, and we look forward to continuing to stay in touch on how we create greater refugee welcome. Have a good one. Bye-bye.